Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle, and I'm joined by my co-host, Michael Hall. Reed will not be joining us for this episode. We're recording kind of earlier, so he's still at work at the moment. This episode of the Burgundy Zone is called Miami Vice, so it's time to go undercover. And speaking of, the Burgundy Zone is a part of the Frederick Podcast Network. You can find out more by going to www.letsofrederick.com. And going undercover, we thought we'd bring in big man himself, Mr. Mitchell Tischler. How are you doing on this beautiful Thursday evening, brother?
Gentlemen, I'm doing better today than I think we all will be doing on Sunday.
Now you got to bring it up, Mitch. Now I'm depressed. No, but seriously, before we get into the talk of this weekend going against the Dolphins, which we're all very aware of the high-powered offense that they do have. But before we get into that, if you could give us a kind of a brief overview of the new DBs coach that was just hired this week, Zalgado, who is a former Bills and Michigan State defensive backs coach.
Yeah, actually, his brother was played at the University of Maryland and is involved in the NFL and a lot of injury, waivers and stuff like that.
Okay.
So it's interesting, kind of small world. Watch this thing come around, but it's an interesting hire. I'm curious. I'm sure just like everybody else, who decided on that hire. I don't believe that it was necessarily Ron Rivera's choice, and might be a little bit of a the new ownership group getting an inside man who can work with the DBs a little bit, but also just kind of get some intel as to, what's going on behind the scenes, because as much as those guys are around, they're not sitting in every meeting. They're not talking to players, players aren't necessarily going to be open with them. So it's an interesting hire. And I hope with Ron's simplified defense that the secondary plays better and everyone gets their due credit.
Right. And we mentioned this high-powered offense that Miami has, and obviously this defense has been not even little. They've been lackluster pretty much all season. What can this defense actually do short of Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Mostert, and A-Chain not actually getting on the bus to come to DC? What can this defense do to kind of slow them down and maybe pull out a Philly-esque win from last year?
Yeah, I mean, listen, the Dolphins aren't the same team on the road as they are at home. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend like they're playing the 85 Bears or the, 2007 Patriots or any of these, games that would be, relatively unwinnable. So let's be honest. Let's be honest there. But what I think is going to happen is you're going to see a very vanilla defense. I think you're going to see a lot of corners cover three. You're going to see a lot of, don't get beat deep coverage, essentially. And you're going to see Waddle and Hill, and those guys have free reign within 20 yards of the line of scrimmage, but not have a lot of room to get beaten over the top. And it's kind of a bend, don't break, prevent style defense. But, short of Tua just kind of having a really bad day, it's hard to imagine a scenario that the Dolphins don't score, at least 30 points, as almost every other team that plays the Commanders, gets to do. We talk so much about their, the receivers and their skill players and their speed and Mostert and all that. And part of it is the offense that they play. But I don't think that folks realize the Dolphins have allowed the fewest pressures in the NFL.
Yep.
And they've allowed the third fewest sacks in the NFL.
Yep.
And they have had major injuries along their offensive line and have played, a number of different combinations. And so when I look at this game, there aren't a lot of paths to victory that I see this defense going out and winning it. I think it's going to be more on the offense having to go out there and eat up clock and score points, which is something that they haven't done a ton of this year. Against the Cowboys last week on Thanksgiving, they ate up a ton of clock. They just couldn't score any points. And to go 75 plays and only score 10 points, I think all three of us and everyone watching can agree that's not going to be enough to beat the Dolphins this weekend. So I think it's going to be – I think the defense is going to have to play a strong bend but not break, and the offense is going to have to really come through and eat up clock and ultimately score points.
Yeah, the only statistical category of the six that are provided that I look up, the only one, the Dolphins offense, the only one that they're not top 10 is third down percentage. They're the 12th in the league, averaging about 42%. There's any way you could limit this offense is by getting off the field on third down or creating those long third downs. But even then, I don't think that we have that much confidence in it, Mitch. We've seen that all season long. But, the big...
Well, the Dolphins don't get a lot of, real quick, the Dolphins don't get a lot of third downs. That's they're
You're
that
right.
high, because it's usually first down, second down, first down, touchdown. Third downs over down there in Miami.
That's a good point. And also, dude, I looked up the stats. Raheem Mostert, 151 carries, 13 touchdowns, dude. 13. Unfreaking real. But the big question...
Killing it for my fantasy team.
The big question that has kind of surfaced this week, I've been asking this question for a while, but reality is hitting us in the face right now, Mitch. Washington right now is having a top 5 pick, number 5 in the draft. Sam Howell is playing probably the best quarterback play that we've had here since probably Kirk Cousins. How are you feeling about this right now? Like, are you on the camp of saying if you're this high, you have to go after a quarterback, or are you looking at this saying I want to go get a guy like Joe Alt or Olu Fashanu to be able to help Sam out? How are you looking at it?
I hate you guys. Today on Twitter, for the first time, I engaged in a draft talk, and I said, I'll engage with this right here, right now, but it'll be the last time that I do draft talk until after the season ends. And then lo and behold, on our podcast, JP dragged me down into the depths of draft talk, and there we were. What I'll say is, first of all, I think these last 5 weeks will play a huge part in what happens in the draft, particularly because the last 5 weeks they have 4 very good defenses that they're going to play. And the Cowboys were the toughest defense that Sam Howell had played to date. And I think as we go, you're going to have the Niners, you got the Jets, you got the Cowboys again, and the Rams, who obviously have Aaron Donald up front. So I think that's going to go a long way to figuring out what they do. But to me, I think you have to start with the Sam Howell portion of this. And I've been enamored by Sam, and I've loved his growth, game over game and week over week. But at the end of the day, you look at the numbers, and they're 24th in points last year. They're 21st this year. I believe they were 24th in yards last year. They're 20th this year. It's not a huge step up, considering we can all agree that last year's quarterback play was bad. And so, I mean, as much as we think and looks like Sam is playing better because he's putting up bigger numbers, I think a lot of that comes from the number of passes he's throwing and the fact that they're behind every single game, and he's being forced into this situation of doing that. So, I don't know that we're going to get a consensus answer by the end of the season. But what I will say, if they have a top 5, top 7 pick, they need a better process than what they did in 2020. It's going to be a semi-similar situation. In 2019, they drafted Dwayne Haskins in the first round. Obviously, that was a Dan Snyder yacht pick, but doesn't change the fact that they had a first-round quarterback, and then the next year they had a quarterback on a rookie deal. Next year they had a top 5 pick. I don't think they did at the time. I didn't think they did enough, and certainly now I didn't think they did enough to try and figure out what was possible other than Chase Young at number 2 in that draft. They were locked in on him, and teams knew they were locked in on him. So there weren't a lot of trade offers because they knew teams that wanted quarterbacks to Justin Herbert, those folks, they knew they didn't have to deal with the Commander or the Redskins then, because the Redskins, or maybe it was Washington Football, I don't even know what team it was, but they were taking Chase Young and they didn't have to deal with the quarterback situation. So that's part of the reason there were no trade outs available. I think this year, there's going to be a new GM, there's going to be a new football operations group, there's going to be a new head coach, there's going to be a lot of new faces around. They just need to have a better process to come up with it. And if at the end of the day they decide that whatever quarterback it is that they take at number 5 is the best quarterback, is better than Sam Howell, or gives them a better chance to win long term than Sam, then I'm going to be on board with it if the process is followed correctly. So that's kind of where I am. And the fact that I am not yelling about 100% drafting a left tackle should tell you all you need to know about how I feel about Sam and the draft and kind of where we are right now. I like Sam a lot. He deserves an opportunity to start next year, but if you have an opportunity to get a game changer, early, like at that point in the draft, who you think is a better player and has a higher ceiling than Sam, if you don't have a quarterback in this league, you can't win. And that's kind of where I lie.
And that's where it goes into the theory of mine that you would trade away Sam Howell at that point if you are going to go with the quarterback, that top pick. He's probably the best player that you're going to be able to recoup in assets for any team right now. I mean, if you're looking at it from a other team's perspective, saying I need a placeholder, he's cheap, and also if he doesn't work out, you can just let him walk in 2 years. It's not like he's a big price tag. I think that'd be a huge trade piece as well, because that's going to be an issue socially, that so to speak. Sorry, Hall.
I mean, sort of. I don't think that you trade him. I mean, we're getting too far down the rabbit hole.
I know, but
November 30th, and that's part of the everyone posting their mock drafts and talking about who's going to be there at 5 and who's at 4, and can we trade 2 seconds to get back into the first again? And there's so many iterations, so many things that can happen. But the fact that you're talking about, well, if they draft a quarterback, they should probably trade Sam Howell and he could get a good piece. Like, there's nothing wrong with having a great backup quarterback. And if the new regime instills the faith in this fan base that I believe a new regime will, the fans will get behind your guy. No one cared that Kirk Cousins was behind RG3 until things went south with RG3. If I'm not saying Michael Penix or whoever it may be is the number 5 draft pick and comes in and plays well, no one's going to be screaming about Sam Howell. You're going to be excited that you're watching a stud quarterback play in the burgundy and gold. And I mean, in all 3 of our lifetimes, I don't know that we've really seen a stud quarterback in the burgundy and gold. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to
exciting times
to have a franchise changing move happen early in the draft.
Okay. Yeah, like you said, it's going to be a interesting next 5 weeks or 6 weeks, however much it is, and even more interesting offseason. And like you said, I cannot wait for all the mock drafts on the Twitter timeline. But there's been a lot of talk about Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and how fast they are, their speed at the wide receivers. Rightfully so, those guys are studs. But here locally, I think a lot of people going into the season kind of figure that, okay, Terry's kind of floating around that top 10, top 12-ish range overall. And you got Jahan Dotson coming into his second year, which everyone thought he was about to explode onto the scene. And it seems kind of like that. Well, obviously not even seems. They've had down years for what we thought their expectations were going to be. Do you think that is due to Sam Howell just kind of getting everybody involved, kind of like a point guard, or spreading out to everybody? Or do you think that's more of Eric Bieniemy's scheme as far as like it's the West Coast offense and you get the ball out your hands quick and it's kind of you go off of the reads I'm supposed to make is where I'm going to throw the ball as opposed to I'm going to feed my targets, my best targets on offense?
Certainly, I've been shocked at the Twitter reaction to Terry McLaurin this year.
And a lot of slander on the timeline, and I'm like, what is going on right now?
Yeah, I think it's
Jahan, Mitch.
Well, Jahan. Well, let's start with Terry, and we'll get to Jahan. Jahan's had a little bit of a tough season. He's had some drops. He's had some issues here, and I understand fans' frustration with him. Fans wanting to jettison either Terry or Jahan is crazy. It's crazy talk to me. I mean, both of those guys are on your roster next year and are major pieces of your offense. It's been a frustrating season, and I think a lot of it has to do with Bieniemy's offense and the fact that they aren't able to block for Sam Howell particularly well up front to give receivers time to get downfield or use double moves or to run some late breaking routes, and part of it's also just Sam being a young quarterback and figuring out timing and all those different things. I think you can look at Josh Allen can force feed Steph Diggs because Josh Allen is Josh Allen and he's a proven quarterback in the NFL, and maybe Steph might not be your number one target, or your number one target on that play, but you can go to him and you're not going to get chewed out by your OC or your head coach or whatever it may be. When you're a younger QB, you got to kind of work the progressions and run the plays as they're called. I have been saying, and I would continue to like to see this team force feed the ball to Terry and get him 5 first half catches, 7 first half targets, whatever it may be. And if he throws a pick trying to get the ball to Terry, so be it. That's if the coaching staff is telling you to do that and you end up making a mistake or somebody makes a great play on it, so be it, and you move on. I think Terry has the potential to be, a top 10, top 15 wide receiver in this league. He just doesn't get the looks that those other top targets get. And I think part of it is the quarterback play. Part of it is the receivers getting open. Part of it is the line not being able to block. So defenses are pressed up against the receivers. I think there's kind of a lot of different factors that play into it. And quite frankly, I don't know that, we're ever going to get to a point where we get to see Terry force fed the ball, to see if he's a guy that can go, 10 catches for $165 and 2 touchdowns, type game. But he's a very, very good football player. And the fact that fans are annoyed or fed up or, whatever the word is with him is crazy to me.
Absolutely crazy. But Mitch, to wrap this up, I only have a couple more questions for you. But first one being, the top 3 rounds in the NFL draft, which positions are you taking? I'm just joking. Can you give us a quick injury update?
Hey, it's been fun, guys. I'll see you later.
But if you could give us an injury update on guys like Tyler Larson. Just got a notification from the Commanders that looking like he has been upgraded to limited. Has there been any surprising moves with injuries this week?
Not really. I think at this point in the season, especially the older guys, you'll see missed practices. Kendall Fuller's been missing a ton of practices. John Allen too. I think you just see guys who are beat up, especially when your bye week is this late in the year. You have guys that are extra beat up. I will say that despite the super late bye week, this team's been relatively healthy, and there's a lot of things you can blame on why this thing has gone wrong, but I don't think health is really one of them. So I expect Larson's going to play. I think Forbes is the other one. I think he's going to be out for this weekend. I'm a little surprised they didn't put him on IR, but I guess at this point, if you're IRing him, he might come back for one game, maybe. So, maybe you leave it open so that to see. But he's dealing with that elbow injury.
Real quick, Stromberg is on IR, right?
Yeah, he's able to come back, I believe, next week potentially, but okay. I don't think he's coming back. I think he's a done for the year guy.
Okay.
That looked like a pretty nasty knee injury that he took. We haven't really heard any updates, and at practices, there's a kind of a far field that the guys who are close are kind of working out on, and we haven't seen Stromberg since the injury happened. So I wouldn't expect that we're going to see him again this year.
My man. Next question. Josh, I'm not sure if you saw this, but Nikki Giabalas had just set out a couple of tweets earlier talking about Josh Harris speaking at, I think, a conference or something of the other, talking about the stadium and saying that they're going to try to invest as much as they can into FedEx, but they're very much adamant in looking into getting a new home, which is obviously great to hear in my point of view. I think the National Harbor and obviously RFK are the only 2 options. Is that good news to you?
Yeah, those aren't the only 2 options, though. I mean, FedEx.
Of course.
FedEx location is, I think, probably the most viable option if we're being honest with ourselves, as to where it may end up. I mean, I think RFK would be perfect, but I don't believe that the city is ultimately going to let them build the accoutrement around where they want the bars and restaurants and hotels, and they want to make it kind of a year-round thing. I don't know that the city's going to want that money if they're going to build that kind of extras on it. So I think Landover location is probably the most viable one, and that would be getting rid of FedEx Field. Let me be clear: right. This is knocking down FedEx Field and building it in the parking lot, where the fans park right now, or maybe they buy the land across the street at Landover Mall and build the stadium there. But that area to me is the front runner to where it should be. Ultimately, I would love for it to be at RFK. At RFK, but I just don't think that the modern NFL stadium situation where you kind of build movie theaters and restaurants, all that stuff is going to fit in that location and fit within the cities, within the District of Columbia's plans for how they want to develop that area.
Yeah, the only reason I say that is because it's a foregone conclusion in my mind that they want to get away from FedEx because the quote "a new home" said they're looking ahead, man. They want to get the hell out of FedEx. Obviously, it's probably their only option at this point because not that many suitors, but you never know how things are going to go down the line. Last question.
Hold on real quick. Just getting out of FedEx Field is getting out of the crappy stadium that's at
right.
FedEx,
right.
not not Landover. And he said, "Hey, we want to get out of Landover." That's a different story. And
Okay.
FedEx Field, listen, like
I'd never
last
heard
week,
that explanation before, and that makes sense.
I think just when you look at the big picture, there are hurdles no matter where you're going to go, but there are fewer hurdles at in Landover than there are elsewhere. The most important thing Josh Harris said today, which I don't know where you guys I mean, I imagine I know where you stand on it, and you're probably going to hate me for saying this.
Yeah.
They asked him about the name change, and he's like, "Yeah, we want to concentrate on what's important right now before we worry about that." And to me, that's the most important thing that he's said as an owner, because I love yelling about the name change and hating Commanders and wanting to go to Red Hogs or any of these other things is great. There's so many things messed up in this organization right now and that need to change, that I want to get the organization right first. Let's get the right people in charge of the business.
Agree.
Get the right people in charge of football. Let's delegate the money correctly to where it's supposed to go. And at the end of the day, when everything is done and ready to go, you then decide, hey, we want to change branding and all this stuff. Fine, so be it. But if you spend time and money and resources and manpower on name change before you figure out how to win damn football games, that's the wrong way to go about doing it.
Mitch, where were you 2 months ago, my friend? My goodness, that's what I've been preaching this whole time, and you are absolutely freaking right, my friend. Absolutely freaking right. Last question I have for you. I know we're not. Is there any GM candidates that you're looking forward to? I would imagine you're under the same mindset I am, where we don't want to do the Dan Snyder thing. We don't want to hire the head coach and then go get the GM. We want to be able to go hire the GM and allow them to be able to orchestrate the team how they want, hire the head coach, and so on and so forth. Are there any names that have piqued your interest?
Certainly, Adam Peters from San Fran is a name that's going to be ballied around, and I think he's a super interesting guy who can help out. The Dolphins assistant GM, whose name I can't come up with at the moment, but I think it's interesting considering this weekend, they're playing the Dolphins, is a guy who I love the way that he built the Dolphins. He had a singular focus. We want to get speed. We want to get fast. We want to out leverage everybody and figure it out from there. I love the vision that he had, and honestly, what they did in San Fran is great. Building that offensive and defensive line to be as great as they are, and then kind of figuring it all out. What they've done in Philly is incredible, and I know Commanders fans hate hearing that, but I would take anybody from the Philly front office, because, quite frankly, I think they're the most. I think they're the most similar to where the Commanders are right now. 4 years ago, and especially when you look at Jalen Hurts, who didn't have a dominant season before they decided, hey, we're going to go all in on this guy. I think you're in a similar situation with Sam, who's had a good season, not a dominant season, but if they're ready to go all in on him, I'm on board with that. Let's build it up around them, build up those O&D lines, get going from there. So I think there's going to be a lot of discussion. To me, I think the two most important things, or the two best things: one, you said it, got to get a GM before you get a head coach, and second, I think for the first time, since I've been around, 2007 was my first season covering the team, that this is going to be a desirable place to come, and it's not going to be kind of trying to pick off the side candidates for spots, and that counts for both GM and head coach, because you're in a situation where you do have a quarterback on a rookie deal. You got $90 million in free agency to spend. You got 5 top 100 picks. I mean, new ownership that's ready to build and grow and win. And to me, none of the other projected openings in the NFL are remotely close to the advantages that I think the Commanders have. And so, to me, I think that's the best part of it. And I think there's going to be a lot of interesting names that pop up as we get further in this process.
Yeah, Ian Cunningham is the guy that I've circled. Ozzie Newsome disciple, and was with Philly up until 2021. Just has been with the Chicago Bears as assistant GM for 1 year. So that's a guy I'm really, really interested in being able to bring in here possibly. Mitch, I can't thank you enough for joining us this evening. Go enjoy Thursday night football before Sunday comes around and your weekend is ruined as usual, sir. Mitch, can't thank you enough, man.
Hey, happy to do it, guys, anytime.
Have a good
Appreciate
one, brother.
it.
All
All
right.
right, everybody. We just spoke with a man, Mr. Mitch Tischler. Always appreciate Mitch. Really do.
Yeah, man. Yeah, definitely.
Whew, what a week it's been. And now we are joined by our next guest. Everyone should know him, Mr. Cory Sanchez. How are you doing on this beautiful Thursday, brother?
You.
Yo, what's up? I'm doing good. Happy to be back with you guys.
And I don't see you with a hat on and look at you with a collared shirt on. Being all
Well, sometimes you gotta pay the bills somehow. So
my man, I love it. But boys, let's wrap up this episode by going over some fan questions and talking about some other things before going into the game this weekend against Miami. But this question, Corey, was submitted by the Colonel. His question is, according to Rico Street Scores, we currently hold a number 5 pick in the 2024 draft. He explains there's no way we can get higher than 3rd, even if we lose the rest of our games. If we get a pick that high, are we going to pull the trigger on a quarterback or go after a franchise offensive tackle? Isn't this the kind of a good situation for Josh Harris and a new ownership group to be in? Lots of draft picks, over $90 million in cap space, and several more games for Sam to prove whether he's our franchise guy.
yeah, I think your biggest concern right now is offensive line. So I think you would have to lean more towards the offensive lineman. I mean, you look at what we did with the Shanahans, right? The first pick was getting that solid left tackle. I wish we had the same left tackle that San Francisco has now. We might not be in this problem, but that's a different story for a different day. So, yeah, I mean, getting the pick of the litter, and if they decide that, it's better to find somebody else at quarterback, I think that's a good situation. They're in a good situation, however they want to do it. But I think ultimately what we're missing here is it's going to be who's going to be your chief football operator, right? And then it's going to roll down and make those decisions because, we haven't done it right. But I think it's a great question. I think it's a great situation that we're in, because who doesn't love talking draft in late November?
You're absolutely right. And look, this is a perfect situation for Josh Harris, but Sam Howell is a big problem with that top 5 pick. To your point, Colonel. I mean, obviously we asked this to Mitch, but my point being is, yes, nobody is going to be complaining about Sam if Michael Penix Jr. is balling out. But if you go back to Kirk Cousins' documentary, he says, I wanted out, dude. I wanted to be traded. I didn't know why they even drafted me because they took Robert. And that's how Sam is going to be feeling. So whether we agree with it or not, the reality of the situation is that Sam is not going to like that situation. And I'd be willing to bet there's nobody else in this football team that's going to garner the type of assets and meaning in first round picks like Sam would. So if you are going to take a top 5 quarterback that high, you might as well trade Sam for as many assets as possible, put him in a good situation and set yourself up for success, like you said. But I personally am under the belief of going offensive tackle or just going best player available based on what the GM wants. Obviously, I'm not the GM, but I've done the film review on Olu, done the film review on Joe Alt and on Fuaga, and you can't go wrong there. And the change of identity on the offensive line is needed. To your point earlier, Corey, we haven't had that tenacity, that aggression on the offensive line since Trent and Sheriff walked. And that's something that needs to be brought back, because what is our identity up front? And we really don't have one. There's nothing we can really hang our hat on right now. And getting that kind of prospect who could come in right away and be productive right away and actually be a possible all-pro is exactly what you want to add here. But I also understand the argument of, we were saying that about Chase Young. But that's why I hope that the GM would be able to scout well, have a good scouting surface in place to be able to pick out who the good ones are and who isn't, so we can make sure that is because potential has destroyed this football team, Corey and Colonel. It really has. I mean, you go with Chase Young, Jamin Davis, Sadiq Charles, Cosme, go down the list. We are banking on the progression, but the progression never comes. I'm tired of the waiting for the potential. We need the production immediately.
What did John Allen say, right? Potential is a word used for somebody who hasn't done anything.
Yes.
And if we had a whole bunch of potential, we could cash so many Super Bowl rings with that. So, yeah, no, I mean, the potential hasn't lived up to the expectation, and we got to get there.
Yeah, 100% agree. And to the potential point, before I answer the question, I want to say it was Matt Valdonis on Twitter, but he was talking about like the past drafts or whatever. It might have been someone else. My bad if it wasn't him. But basically he was talking about how I forget who. Oh, matter of fact, it was Rio. He shared the PFF draft, and Matt was commenting on it, and he was saying that like the draft that the PFF guy had was so like on point. Like there's not really like any all pros out of there, but there's like 5 guys that could probably come in and be impact players right away, as opposed to like what the current staff has done, where it's like, hey, we're gonna get Jamie Davis on potential and like down the line potential. Hey, we're gonna draft Jahan because we think the potential is there. We're gonna draft this guy because of potential. So to your point, it's like, do you want to draft guys that have instant impact and like maybe like not as high as a ceiling but a higher floor,
That's Joe
or
Wall.
do you want to? Yeah, exactly. Or do you want to draft someone that's gonna be higher ceiling, but it might take them a little bit of time to develop, and
That's
then you're gonna
Fuaga.
have
I mean,
exactly.
sorry,
So
that's Olu. Sorry, that's Olu.
right, but yeah, to answer the question, I'm kind of with like which Mitch said, pretty much like we were talking about earlier, where would I want to build around Sam going into 2024 and just kind of like that, what the Eagles did with Jalen Hurts or what the Bills
Right.
did with Josh Allen, where it's like, all right, we've seen the growth. Now we're gonna go all in on this guy and see what happens. And then obviously Josh Allen's on his second contract, balling out. And then you look at Jalen Hurts as well. All right, we've seen the growth. We've seen the growth from year to year, game to game. Now we're gonna go all in. We're gonna get him AJ Brown. We're gonna get Devontae Smith. We're gonna get a beast offensive line. We're gonna get a beast defensive line. And look what the Eagles are doing now. So I wouldn't be mad like if the new GM came in, did his evaluations and said, hey, I like Sam, but I think that Michael Penix, or we're going to trade up for Caleb Williams or Drake May or whoever the quarterback might be that they decide that they want to be the guy. I wouldn't have a problem with it because
Do you really like Penix?
who, me?
You look like a kind of guy like Penix.
Nah, I get what you're saying. But
You got the energy.
but yeah, so like I think that building around Sam would be the smart route, but like I said, at the same time, if a new quarterback comes in and Sam Howell ended up being like one of the best backups in the league, but the guy in front of him is playing, balling out, winning games, like Mitch said, obviously people are going to still like root for Sam and want Sam, but if the team's winning games with another guy, it's kind of like the Kirk Cousins RG3 thing, like Mitch was saying. People forgot about RG3 really quick as soon as Kirk started winning games for us. So I think that yeah, it's up to the new GM, and I'm good with it either way. But I guess if I was the GM, I would go all in on Sam and for this next year, and put the team around him. So that way, if he doesn't pan out, okay, now we're gonna have the team built already out. We already have the team built out.
Correct.
Now let's just kind of drop the quarterback in.
And that's why you keep Sam Howell. Exactly. Because for that reason that he only has 2 years left on his contract. If he doesn't pan out, you're not in the hole money-wise, and you're able to recharge at that point because you're starting off fresh. It's not like it's a lot of capital like we have with Robert Griffin III, where we trade a bunch of assets, and now we're stuck in a situation where, well, do we trade them? Do we release them? And you're not getting anything recouped. You don't have to worry about that with Sam Howell. Fantastic point. I will, real quick, before we get into the next question, the Burgundy Zone exclusive, I want to give you guys my scouting report real quick. Everyone out there, a lot of people will tell you that Olu Fashanu is a perfect pass protecting prospect, that he is on par with Trent Williams coming out, that he is athletic as Trent Williams. That is not the case. If you watch the Ohio State tape, JT did really well on him, and JT is going to be a possibly second first-round pick as an edge rusher at Ohio State, but he did works on him, and those type of edge rushers are everywhere in the NFL. The only way that I'm cool with Olu being drafted in the top 5 is you give me a great offensive line coach. Fuaga, Talise, if you're looking for that attitude, if you're looking for that identity, this dude he looks to kill people, man. And that's the kind of guy you want to slide in, but he's a right tackle. But honestly, for me, the number 1 tackle in this draft class right now is Joe Alt. And I just want to let you like you said, Hall.
Of course, Kyle likes the white guy.
He has a higher floor, but he has a lower ceiling than Olu. But that's what with Olu, I don't want Emmanuel Forbes another prospect with a bad coach. I don't want that to happen. If you're bringing Olu in here, I want to be able to reach his ceiling because he has a higher ceiling. I want to be able to reach that, so get a good offensive line coach so we can reach that ceiling. Like we talked about earlier, the potential gets you killed, and that's what I don't want to do with Olu. It's just say, oh yeah, he's that good. We don't need to get somebody that great in here. If I was a GM, I want to make sure that whatever coach you're bringing in has a great O-line coach to pair with Olu. I don't want to leave that kid hanging.
So
Now,
is Jason Reed going to do a expose on you next, guy?
yes, he is. Yes, he
Okay,
is, Corey.
I got you.
You know, that's not funny. It's not funny.
No, you're right. It's hilarious.
No, he's gonna approach me. You know what I'm gonna say? My name's not Kyle. It's La Kyle. Remember, I'm 2%, bro. It's La Kyle. Now, let's get into the next question. And this one was submitted by Steve Lim 3 days ago, but it was just it was the day after we recorded. It was on Monday, and we record on Sundays now. But his question was, Corey, is it dysfunctional to make a new head coach use the old OC versus letting him hire his own? This is regardless of who the quarterback is next year.
Yes. If it's his show, if he is running the show, and you want him to put together the best staff that he thinks is possible, absolutely. I think that is textbook dysfunctionality.
That's what Snyder would do, right?
Yeah, I feel like that's something Dan would do. But, I think at the end of the day, you've got to let this coach do the evaluations. It's the same thing we had with O'Connell and Scott Turner. We wanted a lot of us wanted KOC, but Ron's godson had to get a job. So come on. So I kind of think of it in that situation, in all seriousness, is that you've got to let whoever the head coach is going to be, he's got to pick his own staff.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Corey. And Steve, without a doubt, it's dysfunctional. It's on dysfunctional meter. It's off the charts. You know what I mean? And that's absolutely what Snyder would do. I think the number one rule here is though, Steve, is probably going to get beaten like a dead horse for the next month and a half. But just getting a new GM in here and letting him be able to dictate what is going to go on. Mm-hmm. And obviously, you want to get the GM in here. And if you don't want the GM to force Eric Bieniemy on the new head coach, obviously give him that reign, but also give him the ability to say, would you like to retain Eric Bieniemy? Would that be a good piece for you? Are you interested in that? But that can't be like a caveat for them getting the job, obviously. But yes, it's dysfunctional, without a doubt. Thank you, Steve. That was fantastic. You want to add anything?
No, I was going to say it's definitely, like you said, it's definitely dysfunctional. The only, I wouldn't even call it like caveat or like only other like way I would be like 1%, like 0.001% okay with it is if they, which is again, this is not going to happen because we're coming off of a defensive-minded coach. But if they hired a defensive-minded head coach and it was kind of like, hey, we're going to roll with Sam Howell in 2024, for him to have the continued growth for the best, what's best for him. Okay, well, I'm going to hold over Eric Bieniemy in the offense so that guys are in their second year of the offense, a little bit more natural as opposed to like they're learning offense throughout the whole year. It's more of like, okay, we're coming into the year now. We already know the offense. We're going to hit the ground running per se. But again, we're coming off a defensive-minded coach, and it's like you said, that's a Dan Snyder move. So like we're hopefully past those years by now, right now. So
you never know.
You never know. But like I said, if they wanted to just solely focus on Sam Howell and say what's best for Sam Howell is to keep Eric Bieniemy as offensive coordinator, then like I said, I would see why they would do that. But again, we've seen how that turned out in the past, and it never turns out good.
Yeah, you're right. Now, let's go to our next question, Corey, in the Discord. It's from Tim Towner. He asks, now, the most important thing left in these 5 games over the next 6 weeks is the development of Sam Howell. So, what area would you most like to see Sam Howell improve in for the rest of the year? Sacks, turnovers, deep balls, accuracy?
I think it's a combination of 2 things. One, a lot of times isn't his fault. I think the sacks, and then I think the turnovers, because it just seems like while Sam is moving the ball, it seems like turnovers are in inopportune moments. Like we look at the Philadelphia game, we look at the Seattle game. It just seems like in those moments where you don't need a turnover to occur, it happens. I'll even call the one that gave Deron Bland the record. I'll call that a wash because that was at the end of the game, and the game was already decided at that point. So it didn't really matter to the point of the game. So and you look at the Giants game both times too. They've been some turnovers that just show up when you don't need it.
Yep.
I've talked to a couple of people. I talked to Travis Thomas, a good friend of y'all's too, and he said, in college, Sam would make these throws that are like, why did he throw that? And then it's like, wow, he threw that. So, that's what I kind of want him more than anything is to fix the turnovers, clean that up, because that's what the top tier quarterbacks in the league do. They take care of the ball in those situations.
You're absolutely right. That's obviously objective number one. Arguing with people today about is Sam Howell the future of the quarterback here. They brought up him leading league in interceptions. And look, I love to get down that argument again, but you're right. That is one argument that I don't want to have to defend against. So let's be able to fix those. But for me personally, Tim, I'm looking at this as accuracy-ish. I'm looking more so with touch because he's done well with his progressions, meaning where he sees the blitz, he dumps it off. He's doing a great job at that. But when it comes to these pressure situations where he's throwing it to Jahan in particular, there isn't much touch attributed. It's a direct rope. And some of the guys are having a difficulty being able to secure that. Or if you go to the Terry McLaurin missed touchdown, I think it was at FedEx Field. It was Terry McLaurin in the deep corner of the end zone, and he overthrew Terry. The NFL, those type of plays is what makes or breaks a game. It's the butterfly effect. And that sort of touch is what is needed from him. It seems like that rope is just too much. Maybe he's all amped up. He drank a lot of Mountain Dew at halftime. Maybe that's just what's happening to him. But that touch needs to come to him, and that's one of the things I actually highlighted on him in his college film pre-draft was his touch, and I think that's the one element of his game that he can progress in and help himself, because in the NFL, it's really hard to be able to fit those windows, and sometimes touch can help a lot for your wide receiver.
Yeah, I would say for me, I would go kind of like Corey, the backbreaking turnovers and the backbreaking sacks that when you're driving the ball and you know what I'm saying, you got a nice rhythm going, and so you start at the 25-yard line, touchback, whatever. You go 4 plays, you get to the other side of the field, 5 plays, other side of the field, and it's 2nd and 7. And next thing you know, the play is wide open. The play is there. It's drawn up perfectly. Sam takes a sack. Now it's 3rd and long. You're back on your side of the field, back-breaking sack, drive killers. So I want to see him stop the drive-killing turnovers and the drive-killing sacks, for one. And for two, Sam coming out of college, everyone raved about his deep ball, how he's a great deep ball thrower. And even we've seen that in the preseason as well. We saw it last year against Dallas, hit Terry down the sideline. We've seen him in the preseason just throwing bombs, throwing deep balls in training camp and whatnot. Everyone applauded his deep ball. And we get to the regular season, and obviously regular season is different from training camp, preseason. Right. Things are moving a lot faster. Guys are switching up coverages and whatnot pre-snap and during the snap. But it just seems like when they do take those deep shots, it's always maybe a yard or two overthrow, or it's like a yard or two short, or we saw the De'Ami Brown one where De'Ami was kind of cutting it on the post, and he kind of threw it like he was running like a go route or a corner route. And it's just kind of like, even in like Jamal puts that on Twitter all the time where he's like, I don't know, the disconnect between training camp and the regular season that is because, like I said, one of Sam's greatest traits coming out of college was his deep ball and his deep passing game. And it just hasn't really connected this season for the most part. I think our longest pass has been the B-Rob catch out of the backfield where he kind of slipped out and went 50 yards down the sideline. That's a running back. So I want to see Sam, Eric Bieniemy, Terry, all these guys get the explosives. Like, we always get explosives on us. How about we create some explosives on the other side of the ball?
Good job.
That's what I want to see.
Ending it right, my friend. That was such a good point by you.
Because I'm out. Peace.
The one thing I will say is, if you listen to EB's presser today, he kind of highlighted how Fangio's defense, right? I've talked about Jack Del Rio's defense, meaning like it's like
he gives you.
It's the Mayweather kind of boxing style of the defense where he's not going to allow big things to happen to him. It's going to be little small jabs, and he just wants to tire you out. It's the same thing with Fangio's defense. And the funny thing was, people were joking about it last week. I was even thinking it myself. I didn't actually tweet it, but I would love to see Sam go against this defense. And the funny thing about it is, the Dolphins' defense is structurally a lot like Jack Del Rio's. And so for the first time this weekend, we'll actually be able to see that. And speaking of the matchup this weekend, Corey, this question from Tim Towner. Oh, my goodness. Procrastinate our record over the last 5 games. Are we going to go 0-5, Corey?
No, I think the most Washington thing to do is to win a couple of games so that that'll really tee off the
We
draft
haven't got
season.
the Ron Rivera 4-game special yet, so
Yeah,
it might be coming up.
we have not gotten.
Well, we
Ron
do have
Rivera.
4 wins, so.
Oh, but
I'm
we
talking
gotta
about
get
the
them
4 straight.
consecutive.
I know. I'm
we
just
gotta
saying.
get.
Right,
And there's
true.
always a win. Y'all know there's always a win with Rivera that we're like, how did we win that game? How did we? Was Philadelphia last year? It was
Steelers the year before.
It was Steelers then, and
The
then I think
Buccaneers.
Tampa Bay. Yeah, Tampa Bay in 2021. There's always one.
Mm-hmm.
So we got 5. I got 5 on it to get that one crazy one. That he's got 5. So yeah, it's coming. I can feel it. I can feel it in my shoes right now.
What is going to be our record over the next 5 weeks? I think we're going to be 5-0, of course. You know me, man. Honestly, no. Like, regardless of what happens,
That would be really the most Washington thing to
honestly,
do.
right now where we are, we're in good hands. Regardless of what happens, we're in a good situation to be in. Either we're winning 5 to end the season to carry into the off season as a good confidence builder with Sam Howell and company, solidifying himself as the quarterback, a franchise guy, or we lose all 5 and we're still in the top 5 pick and not having to lose out in any sort of sense. But I will say this: the Dolphins might have the undefeated season, but we're going undefeated on Sunday. I'm just gonna say that right now.
Yeah, like I said, the most Washington thing that happened. I know, right?
Anyway.
We go 5-0, and then they end up 9-8, and then they end up 9-8, but then they end up in the 8 seed, don't get the 7 seed, and they miss the playoffs. We're still picking in the middle of the draft. Somehow, some way that'll happen now. But seriously though, I think that if I had to pick 2 wins out of the last 5, realistically I could maybe say the Jets, because if we lose let me slow down. We lost to Tommy DeVito, but if Tim Boyle balls out on this defense and wins,
don't say that.
I don't know what else to say, but I would say they usually always get 1 win on the West Coast, where they even going back to like Jay Gruden when they beat Seattle with Josh Dotson making that crazy catch, which it sounds like an anomaly to say, but yeah. So I'll say that they beat the Rams and they beat the Jets. They'll end with 6 wins.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. Now, Corey, the next question from Arch. If you've seen the movie The Saint with Val Kilmer, 3 miracles were performed. For the Washington franchise, what would be your 3 miracles? For me, it would be 1, Snyder selling, 2, a franchise quarterback, and 3, the return to RFK.
Yeah, the only thing I had a problem with Arch is there's nothing about winning in there. That would be my miracle, is to go and win some championships, have a championship pedigree, and win like 3 out of the next 4 Super Bowls or something like that. That would be a miracle to me. And I think the miracle also would be just being a flagship organization in the National Football League. And I mean, that's from on the field to off the field, a group that just does things right. That's what I'm looking forward to, like for one of my miracles. And then what's the third, the last miracle? Me in the owner's box sipping it up, getting tore up with Josh Harris. Maybe you might give me some Louis Vuitton. Maybe I'll wear a Louis Vuitton jacket or something up there.
You can shake hands all day, Josh. It's all good. We won't make fun of you.
No, we're gonna be shaking. We're gonna be shaking the mixers up there.
The margaritas,
shaking them red Solo cups.
Corey said, "Give me the Cosmopolitan."
Hey. But whoa, don't be disrespectful now. Hey, but you two are coming with me, because every time we walk into the game together, we win. So we're 2-0.
That is true.
We're 2-0. So you guys will come with me.
You're right. And look, I'll say one of my 3 miracles being half price nachos, which is happening this weekend for the Dolphins game.
That one off.
Yeah, if you are going to the game, you're going to get half price nachos this weekend. The other miracle would be to winning the Super Bowl. I mean, obviously that's what it is, because like how long we've been thinking about, like, oh my goodness, could you imagine that day? And it's like, no, I can't, because Snyder owns the team. So whenever that does happen, it would be freaking awesome. The third one.
Oh yeah, you got one more.
The third miracle would be for my son. Oh no, it has to be for my son to play quarterback for the Washington Warriors. That'd be really cool.
Like that little Warriors toss in there you had.
Yeah. If there's a damn name change, if they don't do Warriors, because the whole explanation for why they couldn't do Warriors was ass backwards and made 0 sense whatsoever. So
It's just the same as the Wolves explanation, where it's like,
I mean,
whatever, cool.
Wolves is stupid.
But I'm just saying, like, the explanation.
Sorry,
was even
Corey.
dumber.
I know you were one, but I'm just saying.
Well, look, I'm just saying the explanation was even dumber.
There we go. Yes, we love it.
Now, I would say my first miracle would be for them to actually win 11 games in a season for the first time since I can remember, because I think the last time they did it was 91, and I was just turned 4 years old when that happened, so don't really remember that shit. So that would be my first miracle. Second miracle obviously would be for it to return to the days of, if you won the NFC East, more than likely you was going to the Super Bowl and winning the Super Bowl. And that happened to us 3 times back in the day, again, which I never remember any of it. So that would be a miracle for that to happen. So I can actually see that happen. And third miracle would be that we find a franchise quarterback, which also has never happened in my lifetime, whether it's Sam Howell or they want to go into the draft and get a guy in this upcoming draft. I don't care. Just let it be Sam or this next guy. I'm so tired of the quarterback carousel that I've experienced for my entire life. So these are 3 things that have never happened in my life. And then hopefully these miracles, one of them at least, come true.
I do think it's funny that everybody's crapping on Caleb Williams, like, ever since they saw him crying in the stands. Like, come on, man. Like, leave the kid alone, bro.
Only reason Caleb Williams is, like, cool, whatever. He's good.
No.
Like, I'd be psyched because, like,
he's a
like,
DC kid. You got to understand, he's going to cry.
Exactly. And also, we have the same high school coach. Coach T was up in Northwest when he started out. Now he's down in Gonzaga. So I'd be like, me and the franchise quarterback for the Commanders or the Warriors or whoever they are, we got something in common.
Yeah, my man. All right, everybody. That's going to wrap us up for this episode. If you guys want any predictions, I think Washington's going to win 100-0. Tyreek Hill is going to change into Commander's gear at halftime and help us seal it out. What do you think, Corey?
Oh, man, Washington gets out healthy. That's all I'll say on that.
Yeah,
and can I get a fourth miracle? I get a fourth miracle here. My wife, who is a fan of that football team in Arlington, she comes over to the good side and becomes Burgundy.
Yeah, there we go. That's what I'm talking about. My fourth miracle would be for the court to lift their order against Reed not to be allowed within 200 feet of a child. I think that needs to get rescinded so we can actually show up to places with us. All right, everybody. That's going to wrap us up for this episode. I can't thank you guys.
My prediction is they cover the spread. They ain't going to get blown out. They're going to cover the spread. They might win. Somehow, some way they might win, like we talked about. But my prediction is they don't get blown out. I think they cover the 8.5.
My man. I'm not going to say that comment. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode.
I knew you were going with that.
I know. I was going to. I appreciate you all for supporting us.
Where's Reed at when you need him?
For listening. If you made it this far, you're a freaking champion. Corey, take a time every day to join us again. It's always a pleasure to be able to join you, sir. Before we get out of here, would you like to plug your social media handle and your show, just in case anybody watching hasn't followed you yet and would like to?
At Sanchez 405 on the socials, and then you can find me on the Warpath here on the YouTube. So appreciate it as always. It's an honor to be with you, distinguished gentlemen.
I'm not sure about gentlemen, but I'll take.
You doing a different podcast over there?
But what? If you guys
you're talking to us.
If you're the type that doesn't have cable or whatever have you, like if you are overseas, not around the house, if you don't have a way to watch the game, make sure you tune in to Corey's channel for the game. He does live reactions for it, and it'd be really good to go watch it because he does a great job with it. Hopefully, Corey, one day I can link up and be able to do that with you. Freddie and I did a play-by-play for one game, and it was a lot of fun. Try to act like it.
Look, it's good in the moment. My favorite things have become Coach Rivera's press conferences. So those apparently are the hilarities now of this season. So
take it easy on them. All right, everybody. We will see you guys on Sunday. Don't forget, we're not recording on Mondays anymore. We're recording on Sundays. We're going to be after the game, so keep an eye on it. Watch out for it. We're going to have a recap for the game for you on Sunday evening. All right, everybody. I'm Kyle.
Put your money on plus 8.5 Washington. I'm Hall.
All right.
I need help.
If you lose, don't come at me because I'm sorry.
What'd you say, Corey?
I need help.
We all do. All right, everybody. Washington football. Woo! What's up, everyone? This is Kyle from the Burgundy Zone. We are releasing our own merch to support the show. If you want to rock the Burgundy Zone logo or you want to see Reed's face on your shirt, we got it. We're starting with t-shirts, hoodies, and zip-up. So if you're a fan of the show, make sure you snag one before they are gone. Check out the link in our bio on Instagram, or you can find the link in the description of the video. Thanks again for all your support. Until next time.